Yo, what is up, everybody? Popo here, bringing guys a new video, and today we're going to be ranking all the non-restricteds for the World Championship. Let's go. Welcome, everybody. We're about a month away from the World Championships, which is, well, a month and a half away from the World Championships, which is super exciting. And I wanted to kind of rank the non-restricted Pokemon. We did the restricted Pokemon a couple of weeks ago, and now I'm doing the non-restricted Pokemon, kind of seeing where the meta is sitting currently. And there's a lot of choices, and I think there's a lot of sneaky picks that could come in. Of course, we've seen Pokemon in the past like Pachirisu really do well at the World Championships. That's the most famous. We also saw Galissapod a couple of years ago almost make top 8. Should have made top 8 is what I should say. That guy got robbed because he got excited and moved the switch a little bit, and it came off the dock, and they gave him a game loss for it. So you hate to see it, but yeah, so I wanted to go through this list. I don't know how comprehensive this list is. It looked like the most. I kind of went through it, and it looked like it had most, if not all, of the Pokemon, so I think we should be good. So if anything is missing, I do apologize. Is there Fluttermane? I don't see Fluttermane. Hold on. We'll go through it. If it's not here, then I'll just talk about it, right? Because, you know, Fluttermane's decent, but yeah, we're gonna get right started on this. First Pokemon we have is Hisuian Arcanine. This Pokemon has really fallen off since its heights that it had a couple of regulations ago before the DLC dropped. And Incineroar took over, and there was a debate which one of these Pokemon would be better, and undoubtedly it has been Incineroar, and I think that's going to continue. I think Arcanine has a chance to have a showing. I think people might put it into the builder and be like, well, it's good against Calyrex, it's good against Incineroar, it's good against a couple other things, so maybe we start seeing a clear amulet. Maybe Assault Vest, something like that could be decent on it, but yeah, this is a Pokemon that's going to be hard to use, and somebody who's really good might make the play and put this on their team and do really well. So yeah, I'm going to put that at a C tier. Next we have Electabuzz. I'm an Electabuzz fan. I think this is also C tier. It is a pretty decent support with Vital Spirit. It can get away those spores, but it's just not really doing anything after that. You can go Electro Web 2 for some speed control. You can even go for like Thunder Wave. Taunt is a really good move on it that could be seen more commonly. But yeah, I just don't think it's going to be that great. It'll take, once again, a very good player. Magmar, everybody thought Magmar was going to be better. I thought Electabuzz was better than Magmar. It has better stats. But yeah, I don't think Magmar is going to be really that good. Urshifu Water is just so strong, and you have to commit your Terra and are able to survive, or hope to get that burn chance on it. And if you are going for the burn, then, you know, like, you have to Grass Terra, right? Because you can't go Vital Spear, because Flame Body has to be there to stop the Urshifu, so you're already putting yourself a little bit behind. Gyarados, I can't count out Gyarados because it has done well in the Worlds in the past. It's been a surprise pick for people in these restricted formats. It's only a one restricted format, so it's not that bad. I don't think it's really that strong right now, especially with Miraidon going around. But maybe we could see some adaptation with it, maybe Ground Terror with Earthquake or something. To really output damage onto those teams, but I don't think it's good enough. Lapras is not very good, even with Aurora Veil. You have to set up, you know, the snow in order to do that, so you're committing 2 Mons to setting that up without really having any offensive pressure, and I just think there's better options in both water and in ice, so I don't see this Pokemon doing well. Next we have Zapdos. I love Zapdos, but I don't think it's very good. This is like the first format that's not fully restricted that Zapdos just kind of feels bad. Well, I guess in the last format when there was no restricted, it also kind of just felt bad. I don't know what it is. It just doesn't feel right, and there's just something missing with it. If you're going to use electric type, you're probably going to use Iron Hands, or you're going to use Miraidon. Dragonite has really fallen off, but I'm going to put it in C tier because I think it still has a place. Maybe on some of these Zamazenta teams, this could be a good option. And because you're using Chen Pao, so maybe you can bring back that combination. It's pretty good against Calyrex when you terastallize, because it just does pretty good damage. Well, both Calyrexes, but in particular, I mean Calyrex Ice Rider. But it is good against Shadow Rider when it terastallizes too with an Outrage. It does do massive amounts of damage. We do see a lot of Fairy Terrors out there though, which makes it then susceptible to that extreme speed. Typhlosion, I don't know if both Typhlosions are on here, but they're both going to be in the bad tier. This Pokemon just isn't good. It's just not good. It gets Eruption, but it's just kind of a one-trick pony, and it's just not there. Jumpluff, I think Jumpluff could be good. I had theorized Koraidon plus Jumpluff. I haven't seen anybody trying it. I think it still could be really, really decent, but yeah, it hasn't really had any showings. Next, we have Murkrow. I think Murkrow could make an appearance. This could be one of those surprise Pokemon that does significantly well. It's immune to Prankster Taunt, which is really strong for it. It also does really well into Calyrex, both Calyrexes, honestly, because of that foul play. So I think Murkrow has a chance of being actually pretty decent. Whether people will actually be able to output what they need with it, I'm not sure, but I have seen it in some of the online tours, and it did do pretty well. Next, we have Scizor. I don't think Scizor is very good right now, and I don't think it'll make any impacts. Fairy's not really a strong type at the moment, mostly because of Calyrex Shadow Rider. So we've seen the decrease in like Fluttermane, which is the main, up of this dude. So yeah, it's not really working out. Kingdra, people said Kingdra was going to be good. I never thought it would be, and it's shown that it isn't. Kingdra has been pretty bad, and it's going to continue to be bad. It just doesn't have the stats. It just, like, it might be able to output some damage, but with 95 base special attack, it's not really that strong. It just doesn't have the stats. It's just too balanced. Porygon. I think Porygon could be as high as an A, but I'm going to put it at B tier. This is going to be somebody who's going to commit to doing that Trick Room. This is obviously a really good Pokemon. Porygon 2 has always been a good Pokemon, has always had good showings at the World Championships, whether it's restricted formats, non-restricted formats. This Pokemon is decent. It can do a bunch of things, especially now with terastallization, take advantage of that Terra Blast, and that download boost giving you the ability to either go for physical attacks or special attacks based on that download boost is really interesting and makes it a very dynamic Pokemon. So definitely B tier, and I really, really do like the Porygon. I think we could see Porygon Grounds. I think will be some interesting tech. Next, we have Smeargle. I think Smeargle's an A. This is a Pokemon that has slowly increased in usage and slowly increased in viability. I think this Pokemon now is edging towards that good tier, and I think at the World Championships, it's really going to show kind of its full potential. We see this Pokemon taking the role of a couple of different Pokemon, which is a Moongus and those Pelipers, where it's going for the Y-Guards plus the Spore, so it can have that wide range of viability, as well as being able to go for Decorates and, coachings and stuff like that. This Pokemon can really do a lot of things right now. And, of course, the Moody boosts are always going to be fun. You get a couple of good ones, and you're kind of winning the game. So I think this is going to be a very viable Pokemon going into the World Championships. Next, we have Hitmontop, a former world champion. I don't think this Pokemon is any good. I think if you're just going to use Intimidator, Fake Out User, just use Incineroar. It's just better. Next, we have Entei. I'm going to put Entei at C. I don't think it's the best Pokemon in the world, but I think it's pretty viable. I think it could put out some damage against some of the bigger threats in the format. It can also burn with its attack, which is really, really strong. It can't be faked out or intimidated, so you can use that item slot for something else, maybe like an Assault Vest on a Sun team. This Pokemon can do a lot too, so I think it has some viability. Will it be like a surprise Pokemon that takes over the tournament? I don't really think so. Only because there's already a lot of stuff out there that are against fire Pokemon and grass Pokemon, which is what you usually go Terra into. And I think that makes it really hard. Tyranitar, another one you can't really count out. If Len's playing, Tyranitar got a chance, right? I don't know if Len's going to be participating in the Worlds. I assume that they had qualified, but if Len's out there, Tyranitar is valid. Let's go. I love Tyranitar. It's a really good Pokemon, but it takes a lot of skill to use in formats like this, especially because there's a lot of fighting Pokemon out there. So, but it destroys Calyrex Shadow Rider. So let's get that going for it. Next, Ludicolo. No, this Pokemon's terrible. Shiftry's terrible. These Pokemon are not good. They just don't do anything, right? Ludicolo, yeah, it gets that Swift Swim. It can, output some damage. But with Terrestrialization, it really makes it hard to take advantage of this Pokemon. Because what do you want to tear it into, right? A defensive type on it or an offensive type? Probably an offensive type. But if they just have, like, a Rillaboom, you kind of just lose. And then Shiftry, we saw some viability with Shiftry back in, like, Reg C or D or whatever. With that Wind Rider, but it's just not good, especially now. It just way outclasses a lot of fighting types, like we said. And yeah. Next we have Pelipper. Pelipper also he's probably the top of A tier. This Pokemon is very, very good. This is one of the best support Pokemon you can have. It has so many moves, including Helping Hand, and of course, the infamous Wide Guard. It also sets up Rain, which can get rid of the Sun, which stops the photosynthesis boost from a lot of different Pokemon, as well as being able to output some damage with that Hurricane, which is really good into Rillaboom, which is a very viable Pokemon. So it kind of has a lot of that, and it does a lot to the top 3 Pokemon, actually, like top 3 core Pokemon, which is Incineroar with, Weather Ball. You're hitting Rillaboom with the Hurricane, and you're hitting that water Urshifu with that Hurricane as well, just doing massive amounts of damage and taking attacks from all of them pretty well. Not so much the Rillaboom, but the other ones, it resists their attacks, so it just does really well into the meta. And like I said, that Y-Guard is going to help support your restricted, and if you want to use that Helping Hand on there as well, that will give you a little bit of a boost. So it just kind of has a lot of viability. It also sets up your Urshifu Rapid Strike. Man, like, these are all terrible, right? Breloom, Hariyama. I forgot which one this one is, but they're just not good, right? None of these Pokemon are really gonna have a showing. Use Iron Hands, right? Illumitis, okay. It's okay, but there's just stuff that do it better, right? If you just use Murkrow, like, Murkrow's just better right now. And Breloom, just use a Moongus. Torkoal, I think Torkoal could be good. I'm going to put it at high C tier, maybe bottom of B tier. I'll put it at bottom B tier. In these, like, Trick Room-centric teams, this Pokemon is really good, like the Lunala or the Dawn Wings. I almost said Dusk Wings. I have to catch myself. The Dawn Wings teams, this Pokemon is vital in those. It just really helps with setting up Sun, also outputting damage. It can get rid of the Rain. It helps against both Rillaboom and Urshifu Rapid Strike. So it just is a really, really helpful Pokemon. Pairs really well with, like, Ursaluna as well. So it's just very, very, very good Pokemon. I think it's a little bit underused right now, and we'll see if it rises in usage. I don't think the Body Press set will be relevant, but it can also do stuff like that. Body Press, Helping Hand. I don't know how it gets Helping Hand, but it does. Terrible. Melodic. As much as I would like Melodic to be good, it's just not. Talking about Pokemon I wish that could just be good. Dusclops, it's not good. It's just not. I don't know why. Because it was good last format, or last game, even when Calyrex was in the format. But now it's just bad. But you could Dark Terra and set up Trick Room. It's almost guaranteed, honestly. But yeah, it's just not good. Metagross has not been good since the release. A lot of people are like, Metagross is going to be insane. And I was like, I don't think so. And yeah, it has not. Latios, of course, we had that weird team. Did they have Latios or Latios? Either way, is Latios even on here? How come there's only Latios? These don't seem to be in order. I don't even think there's a Charizard. Where's Charizard? Um, oh, there's Fluttermane. Is this by when they were released in the game? Well, there's still no Charizard, I don't see. But anyway, no, because yeah, I don't know. But yeah, not very good. Any of those. Empoleon is terrible. Staraptor, this. Okay. So we have Gastrodon. I think Gastrodon is probably high C tier. And now Gastrodon's, I don't want to say viability because obviously it's super viable. Gastrodon's success is going to ride on the fact of if Kyogre is like well represented or not. Kyogre right now is about an 8% Pokemon, I think, like 5 to 8. And the most recent regionals that we had, if we could see like Kyogre at like 10 to 15, maybe it had to be more in that 15 range, we could see some of the teams that might have brought Gastrodon as a kind of crutch or a just in case this is my one loss matchup. Maybe those teams start to find success and we see them rise to the top. And it's really good like against the Urshifu Rapid Strike, especially if you're Poison Terra, which is one of my favorite Terras for Gastrodon. It really helps put a lot of pressure on that Pokemon, right? And it can get Ice Beam, it can get a bunch of stuff, right? It just gets so many moves that are interesting that it could run a variety of sets. Yawn being one of the biggest ones, though its viability has decreased due to the fact that Miraidon is out there. You can also go Fairy Terra on this thing too, I guess is a really good option. And then it just absolutely walls Miraidon. They have to make a call, right? And if they go electric attacks, then you just stay as a ground type. So yeah, its one weakness, of course, is going to be that Rillaboom, but that's what the Poison Terra is for. Bronzong, I don't want to rule Bronzong out. This is a Pokemon that has won World Championship and has won a World Championship in a restricted format. So it's obviously good, a really good Trick Room setter. I think it's a little bit outclassed by Porygon 2, but in certain situations, maybe this Pokemon is going to be better. There is a lot of fast stuff in the format. Unfortunately, one of the fast Pokemon that's really, really good, Miraidon, resists the Gyro Ball, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. Of course, there's no Xerneas, which is what this was made to like destroy back in that format. So maybe it's lost a little viability, but I don't want to rule it out because I'm a really big fan of Bronzong. And yeah, I want to see it do well. We got some more terrible Pokemon. I've seen some people using Rhyperior, but it's not very good. Nobody's using Mega. I don't want to rule out Porygon Z because it does output a ton of damage with that normal Terra, adaptability, you know, choice specs with Hyper Beam. It just does massive amounts of damage. Essentially gives you restricted damage output on a normal Pokemon. So I think this is a decent Pokemon to put there. Just because it could just come out of nowhere and just do some damage. Cresselia has really dropped off, but I don't want to rule it out. Once again, there's just a lot of things going against Calyrex, which, like, unfortunately also goes against Cresselia. And, you know, like, there's a lot of knockoff out there, a lot of fake out, a lot of, you know, priority attacks that just hurt Cresselia. So its viability has dropped, but I think it could still be decent on some of these Trick Room centric teams. And its Lunar Blessing is very good and not something that you can really just throw by the wayside. Despite the fact that, you know, it seemed like Excadrill was going to be decent. It is not. Whimsicott's the first S tier. Now, I had this argument a few times with people. I said to everybody, as soon as restricteds are allowed, Whimsicott gets better. And people said, no, that doesn't really make sense. But it has proven time and time again. For some reason, Whimsicott's not very good in regular formats, but when restricteds are out there, Whimsicott steps up to the plate. Maybe it's because a lot of them are dragon, but even so, like, this Pokemon is so good. It's faster than Tornadus, which allows it to get through those taunts coming from it and set up that Tailwind. It also gets Trick Room. I don't think anybody's going to tech Trick Room, but, you know, who knows? It also gets Imprison, right? So I think it gets Imprison. I'm pretty sure. So, and it gets taunt itself. Moonblast is really, really good. Um, I like it better than Tornadus overall, but it depends on the team you're running, of course. But we've seen in the Miraidon compositions they're running the Whimsicott. I think this Pokemon is exceptional and very, very good. So I think we are going. Oh, and Encore. Don't forget Encore. So I think it's good. I'm going to put this in C tier only because it compared very well with the Torkoal. So maybe we could see some results coming from this. Sleep Powder is always obviously good. And now that we have physical attack in Lilligant with a special attacker, you can like pair the physical special together. It does have a few very strong weaknesses, like any ghost type is really good against it. Fake Out really hurts its viability too. So terrible. Gothitelle, I'm also going to put Gothitelle in C. I don't want to rule out, anybody going for Perish because it could happen. It could happen. I would not want to play Perish at the World Championships, but if you have the absolute fortitude to do it, do it. Go ahead. Amoonguss, I'm going to put Amoonguss at probably the top of A. The only thing that's keeping me from here is that Miraidon, I think, is going to be a big factor, as well as there's going to be a lot of safety goggles and grass types. So it's really bringing Amoonguss down just that little bit. It's also not great against a lot of the attacks that are coming from a lot of the Pokemon, and Grass Terra on stuff like that that Calyrex Ice Rider are really hurting its viability too. It usually goes for that Water Terra, which does help with a lot of that stuff, but with Miraidon out there, maybe you don't go for the Water Terra, but then it makes it really difficult on what Terra you do end up choosing. So I think Amoonguss just loses a little bit of that viability, but I think it's still an amazing Pokemon. Galvantula is terrible. This is probably terrible. Volcarona, I'm going to put Volcarona near here. I think Volcarona is pretty decent. We've been seeing a lot more Volcarona usage recently. Sorry, I'm just getting my controller so the music doesn't stop playing. So I think Volcarona is exceptional. I think it can do a lot of things. It helps negate a lot of damage into your Pokemon with, of course, that Rage Powder. But you could also go for a special attacking set with the Quiver Dance and the Heat Waves and stuff like that, which could play a big role in your team. And it's pretty good against a couple of Pokemon. So yeah, I think Volcarona is definitely viable and could be in a similar situation like Astronaut. It depends on what the matchups you're having is during that tournament. Now, these Pokemon are terrible. Hisui and Gudra. I've been loving Hisui and Gudra. I've been seeing its usage rise recently. I think a lot of people are catching on. They're like, okay, why? Because you're looking at it, right? And you're like, Zamazenta is really good. Okay, but why is Zamazenta good, but Hisui and Gudra not good? Right? It is. Hisui and Gudra is really good. Of course, it is weaker than that Zamazenta, but it opens up a slot for you to use something that's not Zamazenta that maybe counters, what was countering Zamazenta, because this Pokemon has very similar weaknesses. It, it is super bulky. It doesn't get that +1 right out the get-go, but it starts building up with that shelter pretty quickly, and it also gets a healing with Life Dew. It can also run an item that's not, just the shield, so it can run leftovers or anything like that. So, and it doesn't get Wide Guard, which is one of the disadvantages, of course, but this thing just outputs a ton of damage. It resists so many attacks, and then with Fairy Terra, it's just really able to eat up things, especially late game. If your Pokemon has a physical heavy team, this Pokemon can just absolutely take over the game, and your opponent's unable to stop it. And it's not weak to fire, which is a huge plus, which is one of the downfalls of Zamazenta, is that weakness to fire. Trevenant's terrible. Araquanid, I'm going to give Araquanid a higher C tier. I think this Pokemon's pretty good. I think it can be used. I don't think it's going to find super good success, only because it does have limitations. Its attack stat is actually relatively low. But, with its ability and stuff, powering those moves up, it can't be burned. You can also put, a couple of different items on this. I've seen Choice Band, of course. We have the Clear Amulet, and I've even seen some people going for like more unique things like leftovers. But I don't know. It's okay. It's okay. Or even safety goggles, but it's okay. Salazzle's terrible. This is terrible. I think we could see some usage of this. I wouldn't say it's too high. I think it's probably higher than these, but size spam could be something that people have to worry about. But with all of the wide guard going around, it's going to make it a lot harder for people to use size spam. But Hatterene's one of those Pokemon that can't be really stopped from setting up Trick Room unless you could do enough damage. And it's really hard to do that sometimes unless you have those spread moves. And you could protect it with something like the Smeargle, which has Follow Me and Wide Guard. So you can really take your opponent's attacks away from hitting this Hatterene. We've seen a lot of own tempo Smeargles in these kind of Trick Room setups. So maybe we can continue to see something like that. Grimmsnarl. I think Grimmsnarl is actually better than it was. It has been rising in usage, and it's really good on these Terapagos teams. I don't know how to say its name. That's how I'm going to say it. These Terapagos teams where it's setting up those screens and it's doing something really well, and it's just fainting, and then you're getting in something while you still have those screens up. Also, it's putting on pressure onto things like that Calyrex Shadow Rider with that Spirit Break, or I've seen people running Foul Play that helps it deal with the Ice Rider as well. So this Pokemon is doing a lot of things right now, and I think its viability is going to increase, and I think a lot of people are keeping on the down low. But just know, Grimmsnarl's out there, and it's going to do pretty well, I think. Another Pokemon that I think just gets better in these restricted formats. A lot of people thought this Pokemon was going to be busted coming into this game. I was on the fence. I was saying, it just doesn't really do much in these formats, but now in restricted formats, cutting the half of damage of your opponent's restricted is huge, especially with something like Miraidon, right? Just cutting that damage from Miraidon in half is just so good. Covert Cloak on this thing, but usually you're going to see Light Clay. Indeedee, I think Indeedee is an A-tier Pokemon. This Pokemon is really enabling a lot of different teams right now, not even just Trick Room teams. This Pokemon is just stopping those teams that are going for a lot of priority moves, as well as being immune to Calyrex, Shadow Riders, Astral Barrage, allowing you to get Trick Rooms up for essentially free, because this thing can't be faked out, plus it doesn't get hit by that. So it's going to be really, really hard to knock out from a non-restricted Pokemon. So Indeedee is very, very good right now. I think we're going to see it in a lot of places, and I think we're going to see it on a lot of interesting team comps, mid-speed Pokemon or mid-speed teams that can work in Trick Room or outside of Trick Room. I think this is going to be the key Pokemon on those teams. The redirection is just so strong on this Pokemon. Dragapult, I can't rule it out. Got second at Worlds last year. I don't think it's very good right now, but I think you definitely can't rule it out. Ursaluna, regular form, I think is a B tier. This Pokemon's good. It goes on similar teams. I think it's actually better than Torkoal. It goes on similar teams as the Torkoal, but I think it's just better because it has more viability. You can use it on a lot more different teams, and you usually want to have a special attacker as you're restricted if you're going to use this. So Lunala is a really good choice. And if you have any Levitate users and sitting next to this thing, then you're just going to be able to spam Earthquake, which is really nice. Or flying Pokemon, of course. So, it just does a lot. It also, if you wide guard yourself, you can Earthquake too. But that's Sneasler's not very good. Man, I thought Namorous was going to be so good. This Pokemon has been terrible. Listen, this is probably the first hot take. I think Garganacl could be okay. It gets wide guard. It has recovery. It's really bulky. And it has a move that just does damage over time that might force your opponent to switch out. You can go for Salcure and Yawn on the same turn and really put a lot of pressure on your opponent, which is really, really nice. Especially against a water type, this Pokemon is really good. Also, it has a resistance to Ghost, so that could be good too. Once again, Wind Rider. These all aren't very good. Glamora. We saw Glamora at the early forms of this format actually being really good. I'm going to put it at the top of C tier. It's going to be like in between a C and a B tier. It can be strong, but in some matchups, it's just awful. and it's not really good against the Zamazenta, so that's why it's lost a lot of viability, because that Pokemon has raised in usage. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. This isn't very good. Dondozo, I think Dondozo can actually be really, really good, and I think it might be a surprise Pokemon. I think there's going to be a lot of people not ready for Dondozo as they're preparing for other things and maybe overlooking, nobody's really going to use the Dondozo, right? But this Pokemon can be very devastating if you're not prepared for it. We've seen that, Haze and stuff has decreased in usage, so therefore the stat boosts are staying on these Pokemon. Maybe we start seeing some Murkrows, right? Murkrow coming back. Maybe I think Steel Terra might be the returning good Terra onto these Dondozos, but I think Ground is also super viable with that Earthquake. It helps you get around Miraidon, which is really nice. Honestly, I'm gonna put this near the top of C tier. I think it could be almost B tier, but it's really hard to use because people know about Annihilate and they're just not going to attack it most of the time. So if you could play smart with this Pokemon, you can really take advantage of it and really devastate your opponent. Rage Fist is just so strong. King Gambit has fallen off, and I'm not really sure why, but then I used it and I'm like, I just don't know why, but this Pokemon does not feel great. I don't know. Maybe somebody comes back with it. It depends on how prevalent Calyrex Shadow Rider is, because this Pokemon's very, very good against that Pokemon. But if we see Calyrex Shadow Riders getting destroyed early on, then that means that this Pokemon's going to be left to hang. I know there's a lot more fighting types as well, with the Urshifus especially, that really do take care of this Pokemon. But if you could play around that intelligently with a Ghost type or something, and have those two switching, then you should be fine. But yeah, this it's a tough Pokemon to use, and you really have to position well. Brute Bonnet's just not very good. Fluttermane, I think is it better than Pelipper? I'll say it's slightly better than Pelipper, and the reason why is because Icy Wind. I think Icy Wind's just really strong. It also gets Taunt. We've seen Imprison Trick Room sets. Moonblast just does a ton of damage, especially if you go for that Fairy Terra. And it hits a lot of the restricteds for super effective while outspeeding them. We've seen Booster Speed being the most prevalent at the moment, and just a special attacking version where it's just all-out attack rather than having any defense to survive stuff. And we've also seen a lot of Focus Sash, which really helps too, and you just hope for those speed ties, because often you're just going to take the one-shot anyways. Iron Hands, I wasn't sure why Iron Hands really fell off. I think this is high B tier. Because I thought it was still very, very good, and recently it started to pick up again. It's very good against the Miraidon matchup, as Miraidon really cannot hit it for any super effective damage, while giving it a boost as well. So with Grass Terra, this makes this Pokemon very, very hard to get rid of, and I think it'll continue to do that. Fake Out is always good. You got a bunch of moves. I think Supercell Slam is the call, by the way. I think Wild Charge is out. Supercell Slam is in. Quote me on that, because I've been trying Supercell Slam and it does so much more. Even though I think it's only 10 difference, and if you miss, you lose 50%, and if you attack into Protect, it's bad. But with this Pokemon next to Urshifu, it's just so strong. Trust me. It's the call. Somebody make the call. I was gonna put this down there, but no, this is definitely a C tier Pokemon. I think it's better than these two. We've seen this Pokemon see some success, especially in those Assault Vest Kyogre teams, and I think we'll continue to see that. I think there's going to be some players who really like this Pokemon and really want to bring it. I know Justin Tang was using this, so we'll see if they continue with that. Yeah. I'm actually going to put this at low C as well, just because of what it can do with Miraidon. It could take people by surprise. I know a lot of the Japanese players like this Pokemon too. I've seen it on a lot of Japanese compositions and from random little tournaments, so I think maybe people might not be ready for it and just really not preparing at all for the Iron Moth, and it'll just take victories. Now, Baxcalibur. I can't put this Pokemon lower because he's on my shirt, right? I'm repping the Excalibur. I don't think he's very good right now, but I think it's another one of those ones, if people aren't prepared for it, I think he could just take over matches. He's not the best into the Miraidon sets, but I think he's really good into a lot of the other restricted, so we'll have to see. Wo-Chien, and you know what? Wo-Chien I would have put down here, but I think it's actually a B tier Pokemon. It's really good, and you have to be a very skilled player to do well with this, and we've seen that, right? We saw this Pokemon get top 8 at the last was it the international or was it the regional before the international? I can't remember, but we saw it get top 8 and it performed very well. It was a little bit exposed in that top 8, but I think if you play it a little bit different than how it was played there, or not even bring it, just have it as that option, I think a lot of players are going to play bad. Also, it got top 16 at Worlds last year with Joe Ugarte. Chen-Pao. I'm putting Chen-Pao at S tier. I think this Pokemon, right now it's been performing around a low A tier, but I think this Pokemon is going to, I don't want to say break out because obviously we all know it's good, but I think it's going to have a very good tournament. It's going to output a lot of damage. It's going to really enable its partner Pokemon, and with Urshifu and Zamazentas, this Pokemon is just helping so much. It really puts the rest, like the Miraidon, because it puts a lot of pressure with the Icicle Crush and the Sucker Punch. With Stellar Terra, this thing can output tons and tons and tons and tons of damage. I just think it's very, very good, and I think it's a little bit underrated at the moment, as people maybe kind of thought they moved past it, but I think the train's going to move back, and we'll see. Ting Lu, I think Ting Lu is probably here. It's really good against the Miraidon matchup, so because it does well into Miraidon and it does well into the Farigiraf, as well as a couple of the other targets in there. It can survive hits from Urshifu. It's just super bulky, and we could see some fissures being hit. If we could see a fissure in the finals to win the whole thing, perfect game. All right, I think that Chi-Yu is probably the highest to an A tier, without being an A tier. We've seen this Pokemon in compositions with that Calyrex Shadow Rider, which just makes it do way more damage. We've seen a lot of Choice Scarf, so it outspeeds the Shadow Riders. We've even seen some, interesting Lava Plume sets that I don't know how those teams really work. I guess you wide guard and Lava Plume and get burns on your opponent, but Ghost Terra is pretty common on this thing, so when you Ghost Terra and you're next to Calyrex, and neither of your Pokemon can be faked out, and you can just output tons and tons of damage. Dark Pulse one-shots Calyrex unless they Terrestrialize into Fairy type, so it just does a lot. It's really good against Ice Rider. It just really has a lot of viability. If your opponent's using Sun, that just increases this Pokemon's damage. So if you asked me like 2 months ago where I'd put Chandelure, it would definitely be here. But you know what? Chandelure has a result now. This Pokemon's pretty good. I mean, once again, a very skilled user. It was on the same team as the Wo-Chien. So you have to be a very, very skilled user, I think, to use this Pokemon effectively. And World Championship has the most skilled players. Venusaur, I think he's probably around here, right? You can't count them out. Somebody's going to want to use Groudon plus Venusaur, thinking that they got the gas, I don't think it'll put up the results, but, you never know. Blastoise is terrible. Is this crazy? Is this crazy? I think it is. I think it's top of A tier. This Pokemon is so good right now. It just lowers the damage of your opponent's attacks onto your Calyrex Shadow Rider or your Ice Rider or whatever. You can use this on every single one of these teams just to decrease the damage that you're taking, as well as increasing your damage with those, with those helping hands. But it also has Follow Me. We see Life Dew on this thing, Heal Pulse even, and this Pokemon's just doing everything. Also, a Moonblast one-shots the Dark Urshifu. So Setting up snow is okay. I just don't think it's going to do well like it did last year. This Pokemon's terrible, terrible, terrible. Listen, listen. Somebody's going to run it, right? Somebody's going to run it. Somebody's going to be putting the Smeargle and the Muck together, and they're going to call it a day, right? Somebody out there is going to do it. So we got to respect it. Weezing, I think Weezing is also pretty decent. We could see it using the Calyrex team, and maybe you use, the Regigigas too. Who knows? Snorlax, I don't think Snorlax is very good, but it's it's won a world championship, so we put it up there. Terrible. I'm gonna put this down here too. I don't think it's very good, but in certain compositions, I think it could be very good. I think Moltres is probably a B tier, probably a little bit more viable than these. It just, with the flinch chance, it's really good. It's super bulky. It gets a boost when it's almost dead, and then you can use like Citrus Berry with it. It works in Trick Room and Tailwind. So this Pokemon just does a lot. It pairs really well with the Urshifu, where you can go for Earthquakes and then flinches. It's just really, really good, I think. I don't think this is very good. No. I'm going to put this in C tier only because it does something similar to Grimmsnarl but can't be faked out. Terrible. This is going to be the same thing as Latios. I can't remember if it used Latios. I can't remember if it used Latios or Latios on that team. Garchomp being down here is kind of crazy, but it is. This Pokemon's pretty good. I'm going to put it at the top of C tier, near the top of C tier. It gets Wide Guard. It's really good on those Lunala teams. It gives you a fighting type that's not a Urshifu, so you have something that's slower. It can also be decently fast, so you can use it in a couple different ways. It has really good crit chance with Sharpen. It does a lot of damage with those attacks. It one-shots things like the Amoonguss, which is really, really important. So yeah, it does good. Regigigas is terrible, like I said. I mean, maybe like Weezing can do other stuff, whereas Regigigas needs the Weezing, so that's why it's down there. Terrakion, beat up Terrakion, maybe we might see, but I don't really think so. I think this is worse, to be honest, than Clefairy. I think it's the second best Trick Room or Tailwind setter, and Bleakwind Storm is decent, but if you're missing Bleakwind Storms, you're probably gonna not win the tournament. So we might see a lot of Air Slashes. I think this is terrible. I think this is actually pretty good. I'm gonna put it at the bottom of B tier. It could even be C tier, but I think it's a little bit underrated right now. And Airy Impulse seems really, really strong because there's a lot of good special attackers. So I think that's where that's gonna lie. You know what? I can't put it in D tier that it's not going to be used. I'm going to put it in the bottom of C tier. Who knows, right? Maybe somebody's got the gas and they're just going to come in with it and they're just going to win the tournament with Landorus, and Landorus will win another tournament. This will be higher. This will probably be above here too. People have seen success with this Pokemon with Life Orb. It just does massive amounts of damage. Terra Poison, it really helps out too. Talonflame, I think Talonflame probably a little bit like here. You can't count on Talonflame. You know, it's the fastest Tailwind priority user. It also gets Taunt, Will-O-Wisp, so it can do a lot of supporting things, and we've seen it do okay recently. Not really put up great results, but be okay. I'm going to put it here. I think Sylveon could be decent. It's just, there's a lot of stuff that just do it better right now. So, Incineroar, hot take. Top of B tier. I just think there's a lot of things that really stop this Pokemon right now. Zamazenta being one of the biggest ones, but there's just a lot. And sometimes you feel like you're forced to have to terrestrialize this. It just doesn't feel as good as it used to. Fake Out, of course, feels good. And people go, well, it's still really, really good. I think a lot of the reason why it feels really good is because the core is so good that it makes the Pokemon feel better than it is. But who knows? I think this could be a pretty good Pokemon. I'm going to put this actually here. we've seen its usage rise. It does really well on some of like the teams that have a lot of grass weaknesses, because this thing can come in, it stops the fake outs. Then it can also switch in to take a grass attack if need be. It's pretty relatively bulky. You can use Assault Vest on it, Citrus Berry. We've even seen Choice Band. So yeah, this thing can do a couple of things. Comfey, another hot take. I think this is a B tier Pokemon. I think it's really slept on. I think it really enables a lot of the restricted, especially stuff like Zamazenta, where it's able to just keep it healed up and, you know, looking good. So, yeah, Comfey is good. Oranguru, that's my boy. That's my boy. He's gotta go up here, right? I can't put Oranguru down. You set up Trick Room, use Instruct. You just do some fun things. I don't think this thing is good enough. I think people might try to use this, and it might have some success. It plays similar role, almost exactly the same role as Zamazenta. It's just also weaker, and I just think Kasui and Gudra is better, because it doesn't have to terrestrialize to get rid of that fairy weakness, and it has a 4x fairy weakness, which is rough. Rillaboom, welcome to the S tier, Rillaboom. I think Rillaboom is just super strong, super strong. It's immune to Spore. It Fake Out, you know, Grassy Glide, Wood Hammer, U-Turn. Like, this Pokemon's doing a lot. We've seen a lot of people using, you know, like the Rosy Incense or the Miracle Seed, but also Assault Vest. Assault Vest is my favorite way to use it. It pairs really well with Incineroar. You can even pair it with, like, if you're using that Rosy Incense or Miracle Seed, you could pair it with the Iron Hands to play a similar role to that Incineroar, but on different team comps. It also gets rid of the terrain that would be affecting you from like Miraidon, which lowers the damage of Miraidon significantly. So yeah, I mean he's literally one of the best Pokemon in the format. I wouldn't be surprised if he was actually #1 in usage going into this. I think we'll still see Incineroar up there, but I think Rillaboom might be #1 in usage at the World Championships. This Pokemon has had some, but I mean, this is also S tier. Urshifu Rapid Strike is just insane. The core of Rillaboom, Urshifu, Incineroar is just so strong and oppressive that it's really hard to say that Urshifu and Rillaboom aren't. I know I put this at B tier, but I just think it's not as good, because you could bring these two and be perfectly fine, but if you like, sometimes if you bring Incineroar, Rillaboom, like, it's feeling kind of eh, and Incineroar, Urshifu, it's feeling kind of eh, but these two together always feel good. So I think these are the two main cruxes. This fire type can also be something different, whereas like this is your grass and water type, right? This is it. And then you can have a different fire type like the Chi-Yu, or, you know, you probably wouldn't have the Torkoal if you're running that, but you know what I'm saying. So there's other fire types that can slot into that, not that same role, but into that team. So I think it's more dispensable, where here there's less often you're going to see a Mungus. Mungus is usually going to be brought on different team compositions. So yeah. Single Strike, I think Single Strike's still good, and I don't want to rule it out at all. I think it's still a B tier. It still hits through Protect, right? It does a ton of damage. Regieleki, I think Regieleki has a chance of being pretty decent. It just really hasn't shown. I think maybe in a double restricted format, this Pokemon's going to get better. Regidrago, I'm going to put it at the very top of C tier. I think this Pokemon is just getting better and better, and people are using it a lot more effectively. Once again, another very skilled to use Pokemon. It might not seem it because you're like, just click funny button, but no, that's not what this Pokemon's about. This Pokemon is very skilled Pokemon to use. Glacier and Spectrier are terrible. This is terrible. Another S tier Pokemon. Ursaluna Blood Moon is very strong. We've seen it just dominating in the tournaments, right? This Pokemon has just been up for so long now. In that Miraidon team, we saw it on like a couple of different teams. It was on a Zamazenta team that did really well. This Pokemon is just very good, and it's good in Trick Room. You can use it with Tailwind. It's just so good. It outputs so much damage. It can run a couple of different items as well, though Life Orb is the consensus for the best item. I personally like the throat spray, but I mean, to each their own. This is terrible. I mean, this is also terrible, right? I'm not even gonna consider it. Okay, Skeledirge. Skeledirge is one of those Pokemon that are ignoring the stat boost of other Pokemon. So this Pokemon has a chance of being okay, that it could just be like a little tech Pokemon that somebody uses, and it can kind of maybe take over the tournament, depending on how many people are using boosting attacks. Armrouge and this aren't very good. This is terrible. This is going to be the second highest A tier, I think. This is a splashable Pokemon, so there's a really good chance Farigiraf wins World Championships. I think it came in second at the last Worlds. It didn't win. But I think at this Worlds, it's probably one of the key Pokemon to win. I just don't think it's one of the best Pokemon, and I think there's a chance that it doesn't win, but it gets really, really close again. Whereas these Pokemon, I think these Pokemon have the best chance of winning. I can't rule this thing out either. I'm going to put this in high C tier. Once again, very skilled. If somebody's using Perish, this Pokemon is going to be key and instrumental. And also, it just Disable Encore is just brutal. Just brutal. I think this Pokemon's better than its usage has been. I think it's really good in Miraidon, but nobody's really using it in Miraidon. But I think it's really good. Goldango. I think Goldango is a B. I think it's probably better than Dondozo. It just outputs a lot of damage. It's really good into some of the meta, and it can Terrasilize into normal type, which is its most common Terra type right now. And yeah, it just doesn't really get scared of Caly-I. So that's good. I think that's there. That's fine. This is a hit or miss Pokemon. Of course, at the beginning of the format, this Pokemon was almost everywhere, but people just soon found out that it wasn't very good, and it kind of dropped, but I think we could see it coming back up. I know this gets Wide Guard, but I just don't think it's very good. I think this Pokemon is better than its usage stat too. If Koraidon pops off, this is going to be the reason why. This isn't very good. Diplin's not very good. Sinistcha, I think Sinistcha's probably around here. It's a really, really good Pokemon, and it pairs really well, in my opinion, with Zamazenta, but a lot of people aren't using it in the Zamazenta comps, and I'm not really sure why. It can set up Trick Room, as well as those Machigachas doing not only damage, but burning is very, very significant. Okidogi, we've seen some Okidogi usage recently, and it has been performing pretty well, so I'm going to put it a high C tier. I think this could be one of those tech Pokemon that you just need another Pokemon, and you kind of scour through, and you're like, well, I still have Assault Vest left open. Maybe I can go, but I already have a couple of weaknesses to Fairy, so maybe I don't want to go with that. Oh, Okidogi kind of fits that. It's not weak to Fairy, it plays a similar role. It drain punches, it can bulk up. So I think we can see it like that. Ogerpon, Grass, I don't think is going to be very good. I don't think this is going to be very good. Another S tier Pokemon, of course. Raging Bolt is very splashable, so you could put this on a lot of different team compositions. It can go, even though this Pokemon shares weaknesses with its restricted and Miraidon, it could still go on that team because it gets boosted by the electric terrain, and with booster energy, electric terrain, this thing is doing a ton of damage. It can also Snarl with Assault Vest and just be super, super bulky. It can Terrasilize into Fairy. It can go for Draco Meteors. This Pokemon just does a lot of stuff. And don't even forget about Calm Mind, because that's still gonna be out there too. I'm gonna put in I'll put it next to Hatterene, because if Hatterene's good, this Pokemon has the same amount of chance of being good, I think. Cornerstone, and now before, like, Cornerstone would be down here, like different I think it's a high B tier. I think it's probably here. It just hits a lot of things for super effective. It has Sturdy, which is huge right now, and it could follow me away essentially 2 attacks. So it allows you to set up Trick Room if you want, or get a boost on your Pokemon. It can be put into like Miraidon compositions, as well as, Ice Rider compositions. So this Pokemon is very, very good at the moment. Ivy Cudgel is just so strong, and yeah, like I said, Sturdy is good, and it gets defense boost if you really need it. Hearthflame, I think Hearthflame is probably high C tier. It's really good on the Sun teams, but we've really seen it fall off. It's just not really good against a lot of the Pokemon that are out there right now. That attack boost is always going to be significant, but Incineroar kind of eats it, so it's kind of tough. Wellspring, I think Wellspring is probably the bottom of B tier. It's still really, really good, though we haven't really seen it much. Miraidon, once again, is very, very strong, but if you can get around the Miraidon matchups and maybe you're getting some Kyogre matchups, this Pokemon is going to look 10 times better and just be a beast. This Pokemon's terrible. I think this Pokemon's terrible. And I think this is going to be a C tier. Gouging Fire is okay. I mean, he can give you a boost. He's got that Howl. And he one-shot some stuff with that Heat Crash. So if you get a couple of boosts on Heat Crash, you can one-shot quite a few Pokemon. So I think it is relatively decent. So that is my tier list for the World Championships. I think that the winning Pokemon is going to be this. Will be something similar to these with, maybe Calyrex Shadow Rider or something. Here, but I still think Chien-Pao is an S tier because it just enables so many things. Even though I think it has the least chance out of these, I'll probably put this at the bottom. Let me rearrange these because I think it's gonna look something like this. I think it'll look something like that. Maybe this, maybe that. Yeah. So if you're looking to win the World Championship, put a Rillaboom on there. But anyways, guys, if you guys did enjoy this video, make sure you guys thumbs it up. If you're not subscribed, make sure you do so. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, everybody.